The Watcher. Chapter 2. Communication. The walls of the old cave watched him in silence as he stepped forth from the shadows. This place had been his home for such a long time. Home. That word filled him with a strange feeling. How long had it been now? How many worlds had he transgressed since that day? He pushed the memories aside with a sigh. There was no time for these thoughts now. He reached out and started to move his hands in slow patterns through the air, the void coming from his form, starting to collect between them. When the sphere had collected, he concentrated and performed the phase shift, creating a connection that skipped along the boundaries of space and time. He waited for the response. This was the only the third time he had done this. It felt like a sad mark upon his career. It was highly unorthodox, but both the situation and protocol required it. Slowly, the sphere started to grow from within. The connection had been made. A veiled figure could be seen in the mist, the blue eyes the only thing that revealed its femininity. Mediators. He had never been quite fond of them. Their ceaseless work was necessary, but betrayed their true function. They monitored the communications in the void, ceaselessly sifting through the thoughts that passed through the networks. Spiders, feigning respect and hiding treachery. At least his status gave him a certain immunity towards their controls, even if it only came from fear. "This conjunction requires high-level authorization. Please identify yourself," the mediator inquired in a monotone voice. He knew the hunters were already waiting for her to pass them to his location. Any unauthorized access would result in liquidation. "Purveyor, identification number 6251. Clearance level A5. His voice rasped. Hearing himself talk his own language after such a long time spans always served to put a bitter taste in his mouth. He could hear the voice monitor on the other side give a small sound, signalling his clearance. The mediator visibly shuddered, and he could see the colour leave what little he could see of her face. Good. It meant his name still carried weight. He saw her make a quick motion to her side, undoubtedly signalling the hunters to cut off the prepared transportation immediately. Even the hunters knew better than to go after Purveyor. "Purveyor, this is a highly unexpected but not unwelcome conjunction," she said with a slightly shaky voice. "I am Mediator 703. How can I be of service?" "I need a direct conjunction with the Council." "Of course, Purveyor. I will carry your request immediately." There was a short pause as she passed on the connection, and disappeared from his view. She would still be listening, he knew, reporting any useful information to the Elder Circle, no doubt. They feared the influence of the Purveyors as much as the Mediators, making it certain they paid special attention to any communications from them. He hated politics. All these millennia in their new home, and it was still as backstabbing and greedy as ever. In the early days, only the Purveyors had possessed the strength to lead, and he had done so with unbending will. His thoughts were interrupted as the light reappeared, and a hooded figure stepped into vision. "Purveyor, the Council is happy to see a trusted face in these troubled times," the old zealot said with a small smile and a slight bow. Behind him, he could see the rest of the Council. Their sight served a painfully reminder of how old he was. "Troubled times?" he inquired with an unmoving voice. "Is there another clan war on the rise?" The clans constantly struggled for power and for the favour of the Elder Circle. A clan war was nothing unusual. The Council never took part in these frays. They were fully devoted to the Purveyors, and as such held a status that put them above any other clans. They bowed only to the royal family itself, making them more influential than even the Elder Circle. Even though they never held any actual political power, their words carried enough weight to direct the course of politics in any direction, always finding an open ear at the royal court. At least as long as they had the Purveyors to support their claim, of course. "Aye, it is as you say, though this time there seems to be a religious aspect to it," the council member said with a grave voice. "Even we cannot say what events this will bring forth. I'm sure the royal family will make short business of it. They have always had little patience for religious fanatics." He saw several of the council members nod approvingly at his words. "But I have not called upon you to talk about politics.
There is a situation.
Some of the council members made surprised faces. There had never been a situation with this purveyor before.
Please, purveyor, continue. I have been exposed.
A small murmur passed through the council's ranks. This certainly was a situation they had not expected. The Zealot seemed to process his words for a moment.
Do they know of your intent? They do not, though I may have to tell them part of it, should our interaction continue. And there is no danger of them perceiving it to its full extent.
No. Normally the purveyors were given free rein of their actions, as little as there were. But in such a case, protocol demanded that the council would have to pass a decision and the purveyor would act according to it.
This world is too promising to simply throw away,
the Zealot mumbled before turning to the rest of the council.
This may be unorthodox, but considering which purveyor this is, I propose that we leave this completely in his hands.
Another murmur went through the council, but eventually they all nodded in agreement. The Zealot turned to him again.
You have heard the council decision. We leave this situation entirely in your hands, purveyor. Act as you see fit, but continue your work nonetheless.
He put a fist to his chest.
Rest assured, I will not fail my mission. We are certain of that. You have never failed us before. This is, if I remember correctly, world number 32? 35, he replied in an almost bitter voice. And you have never failed to deliver, the Zealot said with a smile. We know of your capabilities quite well, purveyor. Perhaps you would consider a position in our circle after this world.
He clenched his teeth in anger at the suggestion, but his voice was even as was before.
Perhaps, but first I shall take care of my duties.
He would rather swallow the black abyss before joining the ranks of these old fools. Were it not for his strict attention to protocol, he would simply ignore their existence. His work was too important to waste more time than needed with them.
Of course. Until then, may the void guide your search.
The council did a small bow before the connection was cut off, and the purveyor found himself alone in his cave again. He had officially been given free rein from here on. It simply meant he could carry on his work without having to justify any of his actions. This could be an interesting change for his routine, or it could accelerate his plans at an alarming rate. He would have to prepare for such a case. But first, he would have tea with a princess. He hoped his tongue still remembered how to swallow. His last drink had been before he had entered this world. He waited for the sunrise, using the time to familiarize his vocal cords to the equestrian language. His pride would not allow him to sound like an oaf before them. When the time for their meeting drew near, he gave a sigh before letting his mind traverse the edges of the void and searching the castle. He found Princess Celestia and Princess Luna quickly. Their presence was like a shining light. With a notion of his mind, he performed the phase shift like he had done so many countless times before. He waited for the void to enclose him and moved the displacement towards the throne room. As the phase shift started to take form within the room, he could see that large tables had been set up and anything required for a tea session was present. The two sisters were already waiting for his arrival. Much to his annoyance, though, they weren't the only ones waiting for him. The elements of harmony were present as well, all of them staring at the mass of swirling shadows that had appeared in the throne room with big eyes. He hesitated to step from the tear and into their view. After an eternity in the shadows, he was hardly wary of exposing himself any more. He watched them for a moment in silence, before addressing Celestia through the tear with clear anger in his voice.
"This,"
he said while the shadows around the tear danced to his voice with newfound vigour,
"was not part of our agreement."